Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? Friday, August 12th, 2016. That should give you some indication of how I am. Right off the bat, something caught in the throat. How are you? I can't hear you. Is there something caught in your throat? Okay, well, too bad. It's Friday. Everything seems to be working. TGIF, or T anybody you want, I suppose. Man, I'm exhausted from Donald Trump. I said so in the Morning Post. It feels like, these days that all feel like Friday. Friday feels like it's already next Friday. This feels like it's been going on forever. And he's still crazy. And there's no stopping him. And there's no stopping us from paying attention. It's bananas. And it's his whole media strategy. And we know it. And still, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Does ignoring him get us anywhere? I don't think so. I think the attention is still largely negative. The polls say so. In fact, we'll bring Greg on in just a few minutes to assure you that the polls do say so, and that they continue to say so, and they look like they'll continue to say so for the foreseeable future. It is hot as blazes, I can tell you that. It is, yesterday, I think our heat index topped 100 degrees. I think it's going to do so here in the greater national capital area. Today, tomorrow as well. I really wasn't prepared for this. I stopped looking at the weather. We were having such a nice mild streak of 80 plus to 80 to 90 degree days. Around here, that's basically an 80 degree day. But all of a sudden, we're right back in the swing of things. Lots of news to catch up on. Some of greater importance, some not so much. The Donald Trump stuff as it stands this morning. Word is, hey, don't worry about the whole you founded ISIS thing. That was just sarcasm. Of course, I think that's the wrong word for what we were talking about here. It wasn't supposed to be sarcasm, but sarcasm for Donald Trump. I think a guy of relatively limited vocabulary, so maybe he doesn't grasp the nuance of it. But sarcasm, I think, is he thinks it's another word for I was just kidding, which it isn't exactly. Well, we'll see if we can't correct him along the way. I'm sure by the time we figure out where we want to settle on this thing, he'll have moved on and have grabbed the headlines with something else just as crazy. Update on Olympic gun fail. I think I mentioned the other day that apparently there is a military base not far from where they are holding the equestrian events. And, a couple of days ago, they had an accidental discharge of a military weapon, I guess, on base. That's what they're thinking it is. Anyway, what we know happened was that the bullet ended up piercing the the press tent at the equestrian, whatever, grounds. I don't know, what do you call it? Where does all the equestrian events take place? I don't know, but no one was injured, but I think we managed to get that on the air. Well, 4 days later, which I think was yesterday, or at least yesterday I saw it reported, a second bullet has been found on the equestrian grounds. And I guess it's not entirely clear whether that was or wasn't a second incident. I suppose with these military weapons, there could have been more than one round discharged, and they only just found it. But they found this one in the stables. I thought it was interesting that the papers, I happened to read it in an English paper. I guess they cover the equestrian events more so than we do, except for the Romney Times, I guess, covering the dressage. But they found the bullet in the stables, and the paper made sure to note that some of those horses in there were worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. Just so you get some idea of what the dangers involved with accidental discharges actually are. Because, in case you were wondering about that, well, someone could get killed. But, on the other hand, a horse worth hundreds of thousands of pounds could get injured, too. So, there's real money at stake is the real issue. Well, anyway, I just thought that was kind of an interesting twist on things. Everything else is just is interesting, but it's just plain twisted, I guess. And we'll get around to gathering up all the news as I try and kick my computers to get them to work here. I had an early, like it says here, 4:28 a.m. note from Greg that said, no show today, we're out of power. But guess what? By about 7:30 in the morning, the power was back on. Was it so hot, did it boil your electricity over there, Greg, or was it, what happened?
We lost power for about 3.5 hours in the middle of the night after a thunderstorm rolled in.
Ah, okay.
And we only got it back around 7 o'clock, so I wasn't sure I'd be able to do the show today. As it turns out, we can, so that's cool. I
got this note on Twitter, hey, power is back, and I said, oh, okay, I missed the power is out one, but that was probably because the power was out. But no, I found it. It was in the email at 4:30 in the morning. That must have been some storm.
It was pretty loud, and the dog was not happy.
Yeah.
You know, Abby, our doorbell, sometimes comes and joins us on the show.
Right.
And she was not pleased.
Yeah, well, okay.
She's a downstairs dog. You know, we have a raised ranch, so we're upstairs and downstairs. And, Dworkin World headquarters is not very large, but she is normally trained to stay downstairs, and that works except for storms.
Yeah.
It's the only thing it doesn't work for.
Help.
And she's a very active and strong dog. She knocks down gates, jumps over them if you put them on the stairs to try to keep her downstairs. So she's pretty good most of the time, but she gets scared.
Well, thunder, that must be crazy for a dog. Oh
well,
my
it's
God,
not just that.
shaking.
You know, she gets past the thunder, but what happens is then when the power goes out, we have a couple of battery backups for the computers.
Yeah.
So that, for about a half hour, even if we lose power, I can at least close stuff down or stay on the show and not get interrupted or stuff like that. But they beep. And they must make a noise that I can't hear, but is the proverbial dog whistle, the literal dog whistle.
Oh.
And so she just will not be in the room with them.
Whistle.
Yeah. So once that happens, the thing that woke me up in the middle of the night wasn't the thunder. It was the dog, because she wouldn't stay downstairs because the power backups were beeping.
Okay. Well, that's...
But she's good about that. Right. She wakes you up and tells you stuff's going on.
Yeah, power's out. Oh, thank you.
Great. Okay, let's go deal with this. Anyway, so when the power comes back, what do I find out? I found out that, just like you said, Trump had all of a sudden disavowed himself of this latest worst thing that he said.
Yeah. Which
was the founder of ISIS stuff. After having said on Hugh Hewitt and other shows, for example, no, that's exactly what I meant. And that's important for a couple of different reasons. First of all, you might think that this whole controversy is distracting from his Second Amendment terrible thing that he said.
Might I?
Or some other thing that he said. But actually, this is just as bad or worse, because the whole implication here is that Obama isn't an American, and it's the whole Bertha thing, only, shall we say, dog whistle.
Yes, okay.
And yet, after doubling down and tripling down on it, somebody got to him and said, you can't do this. So this morning, he tweets something along the lines of, no, I was only being sarcastic. So what happens to people like Hugh Hewitt and the other defenders of Trump yesterday, who swore up and down that it was, true and he meant it because he said it and he told me and I had it right here, and now he's just thrown them all under the bus. If you are a Trump supporter, and especially if you're a Trump surrogate, and he's done this before.
Yes. If
you go out and you try to defend him in a sincere way, when you get paid to look sincere, that kind of thing, and you try to defend him in a sincere way, he just abandons you the next day.
Yeah, you don't matter to him.
You don't matter. And so, how do you keep doing this? And you look at Hugh Hewitt and say, look, I get that you have sold your soul. You've told us why. You think that the Supreme Court nominees matter more than anything, so you will lie, cheat, steal, look the other way, pretend things don't happen, so you can get those SCOTUS appointments. You're the most honest of them.
Yeah.
Everybody else is just doing it without telling us why.
Okay.
Right? You're doing it, but at least you're telling us why.
He's giving us links. He's a blogger.
Yeah, but, how do you go about defending this stuff? Because even if you try, he's just going to turn around and completely change the entire story the next day. And I was talking to Dave Katniss, who covers politics, and he was tweeting, I don't understand why Trump doesn't just spend 12 hours saying, she'll raise your taxes and I'll lower your taxes. In other words, why aren't you a traditional Republican? This is how you go about winning elections.
Yeah.
And the point is, Trump can't do that. He's already lied about Hillary Clinton raising taxes on the middle class. He can't even say that without it being a lie.
He could just lie that way.
And Katniss said, well, Hillary wants to raise on the top groups. And I said, yeah, but that's not what Trump said. She said, I'm not raising taxes on the middle class. He made a commercial saying, I'm raising taxes on the middle class, knowing it was a deliberate falsehood, otherwise known as a lie. So he gets no benefit of the doubt when he says she wants to raise your taxes. That's an untrue statement. Yeah. Who are you? Unless she's talking to a bunch of rich people. It's just not true. So you can't keep doing this and then somehow get the benefit of the doubt. I'm not the only one that's observing this. This is a tweet from Amanda Carpenter, conservative. Once again, he throws his most dedicated surrogates under the media bus.
Yeah.
So that has, some major implications.
Now, she's a Cruz person, right?
I don't know exactly where she stood. She's certainly not a Trump person, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think she was a Cruz. I think that was her job.
Well, I'm just saying you can't really keep track of all these people literally without a scorecard.
Well, I was being sarcastic. I don't really know what she does for a living.
Well, I know she's a conservative commenter, and rarely do we agree on stuff. On this, though, she's right. Okay. Was that sarcasm? Keith Olbermann.
I have to check.
A very funny thing. He said, speaking in his Trump voice, he said, it wasn't sarcasm, it was a pun. No, it wasn't a pun. It was that thing. It's the same backwards and forwards. Whatever it is.
Onomatopoeia.
So.
Well, yeah, whatever. Right.
It was a palindrome. It wasn't my fault.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I in a world where you would get an honest answer and that somebody would feel bad about giving you the right answer you would push them and say, well, okay. Now, I know that you didn't really mean sarcasm because that's just the wrong word. But when Hugh Hewitt said, well, weren't you just talking metaphorically like he created the conditions? Why didn't you say, yeah, that was it, yeah? Do you not know what metaphor means? Or you were just...
One of the funnier things about a group, let's say, like Monty Python from a couple decades ago. Think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. They'd have a peasant, working in the mud.
Yeah.
I'd try to dig out some furs or, something from a Thomas Hardy novel. Talking about philosophy in a incredibly complex and correct way as they did this. Contrast with Trump, who is running for president and doesn't know what words mean. And, it's the opposite, except it's not funny.
Mm-hmm. He's not.
He stopped being funny a long time ago.
Sarcastic.
He doesn't get that. And so he keeps doing the same thing, thinking it's going to work. And again, the reminder is this is not a Republican primary. So to get more serious about it, there's a GOP pollster at Public Opinion Strategies. His name is Robert Blizzard.
Really?
Responsible for his name.
Blizzard
Robert
people.
Blizzard on Donald Trump's hidden vote. This is a tweet storm, not too long, but it's pretty good.
All right.
Trump's hidden vote. Okay, let's assume the myth that white GOPers are stayed home in 2012, and let's assume that's accurate. For Trump to benefit, he'd have to be doing much better than Romney among Republicans and whites in image and ballot standing. In other words, if he's going to attract more of these hidden voters, it ought to be showing up. Let's go to the tape. NBC Wall Street Journal post-convention polls Trump image among GOP, 59 positive, 25 negative. Romney, 76 positive, 8 negative. So Trump is not getting anywhere near the positive opinion from the GOP that Romney had in 2012. How about on the ballot? Trump, Clinton among the GOP, 81-5. Romney, 88-7. So, nope, not there either.
Mm-hmm.
What about white people, you ask? Well, Trump image among white voters, 33 positive, 55 negative. Romney image among white voters, 44-39.
44, okay.
Right. Romney was 44-39. Trump is 33-55 among whites. How about on the ballot? Trump, Clinton among white voters, 45-40 for Trump. Romney, Obama, 51-43. So, nope, not there either.
Oh.
A hidden vote comes from unregistered adults registering and then turning out. There is no Trump infrastructure to accomplish this. As we learned from Obama team in 2012, registering voters late in a campaign and a robust turnout mechanism can become a hidden vote, but that's not happening now because Trump isn't doing it. So current polls are reality and foreshadow November with a lack of ground game. Even if you believe it's sampling online versus phone, not going to be more than a few points and won't help when you're down 6 to 8 points, which, by the way, is where he is right now. And finally, a hidden vote for Trump ignores the fact it could be a net neutral, as some traditional anti-Trump R's may stay home. And by the way, there might be a hidden vote for Clinton that you don't see in the polls. I'm adding that because that ground game and late registration and also some of those voter ID laws may actually turn out to be more powerful than people appreciate.
Yeah.
Plus, you got the Trump factor, so between now and then, he might convince even more people to register and vote.
Okay.
All right, so this is setting the stage for your Friday, where are we at? Okay, so what's the chance of Clinton winning? 87% in the New York Times, 86% on 538, 79% on PredictWise the Markets. Sam Wang says 84%. I watched Morning Joe this morning. There was a from the Republican-leaning Joe Scarborough and others on the show discussing this. There is a pervasive sense among Republicans, with some written articles to back that up, that Trump is losing and doom and gloom.
Okay.
So basically, that's where things are at. Here's one from Politico, GOP insiders. Trump can't win.
That's not
Trump is underperforming so comprehensively. It would take video evidence of a smiling Hillary drowning a litter of puppies while terrorists surrounded her with chants of death to America, said an Iowa Republican.
All right.
I wonder if that Iowa Republican was Steve King, who, by the way, yesterday was saying things like, I know Hillary, and look, I don't want her to win, but I could work with her.
Yeah. All right.
What does that mean when people say I could work with her?
Yeah, I don't
it's
know
not
why
what Donald Trump is saying.
I'm not clear on what he thought he was.
He meant to
say
that she was a founder of ISIS, but he was just being sarcastic.
I guess. I don't know what. I don't know where they were trying to go with that one, but
really don't. Okay, here's one from The Hill. Team Clinton tasting victory. Hillary Clinton's team is increasingly confident in defeating Donald Trump in November. It's a Hill article, so it doesn't tell you much. They have a few quotes. Oh my goodness. Some people are actually getting ready to go on the record here.
Oh.
No, in the Clinton camp.
Oh. All right.
Because Democrats are always anonymous sources.
Okay. Yeah.
A couple of articles, though, and a couple of people have said that. It's funny because Republicans are more convinced at this point that Trump is going to lose than Democrats are that Clinton's going to win. And that's not a surprise.
All right. Yeah,
we know Democrats. It's in our DNA to not believe it or not want to jinx it, or, you have to pretend you're 10 points down so you can work twice as hard to get to the same place. I don't believe that for a minute. I think that when you're 10 points down, you give up, and when you're 10 points up, you run victory laps. I like victory laps.
I guess.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying we are 8 points up, and if we're looking at the Electoral College, she's already got more than 270. She's not losing this election, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you got to make it happen. That's just how it is right now. If it were done today, and you still got a whole lot of work to do over the next 2 months, and that's my attitude, and I don't see there's any reason to not be quietly confident about this. But we're not Republicans. Republicans, even when they're 15 points down, usually say we're winning. It's just remarkable. In this case, they're not.
But
they are Republicans, so they're sure about it.
Right. That's their thing.
That's their thing.
He's doing it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a very traditional Republican in that sense.
No, I'm winning. I'm winning because forget about the polls. They're all wrong.
Yeah.
Look at the size of my rallies. Look at how many people friend me on Facebook.
Yes.
Look at how many Twitter retweets I get. I'm winning. And it's interesting because the guy can't tell the difference between polling and ratings. I won because my convention, when I spoke, got like 35 more viewers than Clinton, so therefore I won. Forget about the first 3 days when that wasn't the case and the fact that the whole thing was a disaster and I tanked in the polls. The point is, I got ratings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is his entire thing, and so...
That's his world.
Yeah, so it's not surprising that he looks at it that way, but it's just interesting to actually see it play out as if that really is all that matters to him.
Yeah. Well, he's a relatively shallow guy.
By the way, what does it mean for him to be leading in the polls? I mean, we can look at the exact polls right now.
Yeah, he's not. But
it's 48-40 for the aggregate in Huffington Post, and even Real Clear Politics, which doesn't include every single poll, has 48-41. So it's a pretty decent lead here. And what does it mean? Andrew Prokop, a political scientist who writes at Fox, has a piece here. Presidential candidates leading polls at this point in the campaign have almost always won.
Why?
Because things get set. And by the way, there's not that much time left. The big thing that changes people's mind is the convention, not the debates. The reason the convention changes mind, and remember how badly everybody said Obama did in the first debate with Romney, and actually by the end of the debates it didn't really turn out to change many votes. But conventions will get your party's loose people to come behind you and consolidate, just like in the successful Democratic convention. Clinton was able to do that with Sanders voters. Many Sanders voters, perhaps most Sanders voters, maybe 90% of Sanders voters, according to the polls. And Trump was not able to do that with the anti-Trumpers, or the never-Trumpers, because he's Trump.
Yes. He is Trump every day.
So, although the convention season is a time for multiple bounces in the polls, one party ends up with an advantage when the dust clears, and this gain is a net convention bump rather than a bounce. It's a bump, not a bounce, Erickson and Lietzen say in their book, The Timeline of Presidential Elections. And they're the ones that came up, we've talked about it on the show all the time, 100 days is when the polls start to get accurate, and we're well below that now, the 90-day range. And so this is when the polls become accurate, and they're saying that Clinton's going to win, and the Electoral College numbers are saying Clinton's going to win. You can pick out individual states, like Nevada and Iowa, where if she wins, it's going to be by a very tiny margin. You can say that about Florida, too. Still feel fairly confident that she will win those states. That margin may grow as we get closer to the election. So you can say, well, she's not doing as well in Iowa for various and sundry reasons. But then again, you have to look at places like Georgia, Arizona, Missouri, Utah, Texas. There was a Texas poll where she was only down by 11.
Well, I guess that's good.
The question is, do you waste time and money and resources? And she's not going to do that in Texas. She'll go there for fundraising. That's why the vice president candidate
Well, why won't you have a press conference there?
What's that?
Why won't you have a press conference?
There.
Question. Yeah.
As opposed to anywhere.
Yeah. Well,
probably because she doesn't particularly like the press. She's not really good at press conferences, and she thinks they'll distort what she says because that's what they do.
And yet, she needs to be in the news. What can she do to raise awareness of her running for president?
She can let Donald Trump occupy the news and tank himself.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, as a strategy, that seems to be working beautifully, which is really getting reporters annoyed.
Well,
and they're writing silly articles like Trump will not allow certain people, like, for example, Washington Post reporters there. He bans them.
Yes.
And Katie Tur from NBC wrote about how she actually had to have Secret Service escort her out of a rowdy convention.
Yeah.
There's a little video going around about some guy at a Trump rally yelling at the press.
Yes, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, the press tried to interview him and say, so what's your name, sir? And he said, I'm a patriot, you're a traitor.
Right.
Yelled at them and then just kept walking. And the reporter who videoed this, could have been Frank Thorpe, but I'm not totally sure, also noted that the anger and hostility is at Trump rallies, not at Clinton rallies. And so that being the case, certainly there's a difference between them. So if we're going to talk about relations with the press, neither one of them has a normal or a traditional relationship with the press. The press doesn't like Clinton. Clinton doesn't like them, and she tries not to talk to them if she can get away with it. And on the other hand, Trump recruits the press, plays them up, and then yells at them when they don't do what he wants. And so, he's more accessible. You can certainly get interviews with him. He's all over the place. But at the same time, it's a passive-aggressive, hostile kind of relationship there too. So neither of them is traditional. Jim Ruttenberg we've talked about this. The press is still trying to wrestle with how to deal with this because it's an asymmetric situation. In fact, it's an asymmetric situation because Trump is not qualified to be president. So how do you write about that without being biased?
Every situation is symmetric. It's all symmetric. It's all symmetric these days.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't matter. Well, one of them doesn't like they both don't like the press. Both sides. That's how they do it. Well, she won't have press conferences, and he beats us. So whatever. I saw the video from the guy. I guess the guy actually wanders by unsolicited first to give them the finger and tell them to go home. And then they asked him, so who are you? Why are you saying this? What's up? And he won't give his name because he knows he'll be roundly condemned for doing this. So that's when he says, who am I? I'm an American patriot and you're a traitor. Go home. I do find that interesting. And of course, we all got the same feeling. He's the guy who backs the candidate who asks the Russians to hack a former Secretary of State. They're the patriots, and you people who told the world it was true are the traitors.
Yeah, but hey, we're just being sarcastic there.
Yes, right. Maybe he was being sarcastic. That's true. He was being ironic wearing black socks with his shorts. I know that.
Yeah, but it's not after Labor Day, so it's okay.
Right. It's still, whatever. You see, that's the sort of thing that, I guess if he ever gets a hold of the video, if in an honest moment, somebody right about his age, would probably look at that and say, I still I'm feeling older these days, but I still sort of feel like, I don't know, I wouldn't consider myself an old man per se, but those are the moments where you have to say, when did I cross over into crazy old coot territory? Because that's what we're talking about. The bulk of his rallies are filled with guys who are crazy old coots. And if they come to realize it,
you step back and you look at the whole big picture, and I just hope everybody understands this. It isn't that the election is in much doubt at this point. He's going to lose, and the question is going to be, what then? What next? What happens to the party? Does it take, for example, I saw an article fly by. I didn't send you because, in the end, who really cares? But right. Mike Pence. Has he ended his political career because he was on the Trump train? And what happens to everybody else on the Trump train after Trump goes down?
You might not be able to
and ask, what happens to Sean Hannity? What happens to Hugh Hewitt? Does Hugh Hewitt today say, I know that he told me he meant exactly what he said because I asked him 19 times.
Yeah. But
today I'll say that he was being sarcastic because that's what Trump says and that's what I do. Or will he say, nope, he told me and that was a mistake, but I don't care, SCOTUS.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, pundits are more resilient in that it doesn't really matter whether they're right or wrong, although these guys have gone way out on a limb. Mike Pence can't exactly get away with blaming the end of his career on Trump because it was over as it is. He was looking at the end of his career at the polls anyway. But, you could always come back. Incumbency is a powerful thing.
Which, by the way, is, why he took that job.
Yeah. It wasn't looking good for him.
Everybody who had a future said no.
Right. Pretty much. For pundits, I'm not certain that it matters. And although I guess, this is really an interesting toxic
for Hannity. I think it does matter.
It may. I guess ordinarily I'd guess that he survives it. But the exit of Roger Ailes from Fox News, that could really mean something.
Well, I look at it this way. He's got a bunch of angry people who are his base. That's who votes for him.
They are very base.
And at the same time, remember Dean Chambers, the unskewed polls guy from 4 years ago?
Is that his name? Okay.
Right?
All right.
After Romney loses, Chambers has no credibility. And everybody turns on him.
Well, he didn't have any before.
I get that. But with the people who were following him, They didn't get that until afterwards.
All right.
So when you say nothing happens to pundits, what happens to a guy like Hannity who insists you're winning, and then you lose?
I suppose, well, that does hang out there. Television punditry is a slightly different story. I mean, people just get used to the fact that, hey, that guy's on television.
Well, skilled people hedge their bets. I'm not skilled. I'll tell you Hillary's going to win. Everybody else will say Hillary could win, but things could happen. There could be a meteor. You never know. This, that, and everything else. She's going to win. And the reason that it's so stark this week is you have yet another different week of Trump putting his foot in his mouth, to put it mildly, and then you have now it's 2 weeks after the conventions, and the polls haven't budged. And so, okay, now we're getting to the territory where it's not a bump. It's not a bounce, it's a bump. And so it looks pretty steady there. And I'm studying the polls for evidence that this bump is fading. And you can find it in one or two polls where she's lost a couple of points. And that's it. So this may be the new normal, and those polls don't even reflect all the stuff he said this week. Yeah. Which, by the way, does matter. That Second Amendment thing still does matter, and it's still a big deal. And as in that regard, I want to read to your listeners, or I hope to speak to your readers. Okay. This is Patty Davis. I'll tell you who she is in a minute. You'll remember, but maybe your readers won't. To Donald Trump, I am the daughter of a man who was shot by someone who got his inspiration from a movie. Someone who believed if he killed the president, the actress from that movie would notice him. Your glib and horrifying comment about Second Amendment people was heard around the world. It was heard by sane and decent people who shudder at your fondness for verbal violence. It was heard by your supporters, many of whom gleefully and angrily yell, "Lock her up," at your rallies. It was heard by the person sitting alone in a room, locked in his own dark fantasies, who sees unbridled violence as a way to make his mark in the world and is just looking for ideas. Yes, Mr. Trump, words matter. But then you know that, which makes this all even more horrifying. Signed, Patty Davis. So Patty Davis is the daughter of Ronald Reagan.
That's the guy. He got shot. That's
and that's the daughter of a man who was shot by someone who got his inspiration from a movie. And,
movie
too.
That
was the Jodie Foster thing. And words do matter. And so the idea, and Armando was discussing this yesterday on the show with me and taking Matthew Dowd to task, who thought that it would just blow over and it was being overblown. This isn't overblown, and Patty Davis gets it right.
Yeah. Well, she's absolutely right, and history is...
We don't want it to be proven.
Again. Right. It's been proven a number of times.
Yeah, good enough. We'll take your word for it. Don't show us it's true, just to show that it's true. So here's one from the New Yorker, John Cassidy, who's been following this fairly well. Why Trump's crazy talk about Obama and ISIS matters. What are we to make of all this, he says? At this stage, some will argue it wasn't worth the effort to interpret Trump's misstatements. Don't interpret Trump's misstatements. Take them for what it's worth, because if you try to correct him, he's going to correct you. Or to point out the truth of the matter, in this case that a Jordanian named Abu Musab al-Zarqawi founded ISIS in 2004.
That is a waste of time.
When it was, I guess it was still Al-Qaeda in Iraq at the time. But basically, who caused it? Well, he founded it. Bush set it up to happen. Therefore, blame Clinton.
Okay. Definitely one of the least interesting and effective responses to this has been people who say, well, actually, this is the name of the person who founded ISIS. I know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, don't bother me with facts. Please. We're not talking about that right now. At the very least, it should be obvious to everybody that Trump doesn't deal in reality. He deals in myth-making, demagoguery, and carnival barking. When he's not tied to a teleprompter, Trump often seems to say the most provocative thing that comes in his head with little thought for the consequences for his campaign or for the campaigns of other Republicans. He's like a small child trying to be the center of attention, even if that means he has turned himself into an object of outrage and ridicule. One of the funnier things, by the way, is Trump tweeting that all these pundits having so much trouble understanding me, they'll never understand me.
Right.
And everybody writing back said, yes, we do. We all have children.
Yeah.
If you take this view of Trump...
Whoops. I believe they've been struck by lightning in Connecticut. Okay.
Of course,
there
it was a terrific piece there.
Okay, we dropped
So,
out for a second.
am I still on? Do we still have you?
I hear you.
I'm going to hang up and call back just to be sure.
Oh, all right. How about that? That was interesting. We knocked out one way of the conversation. Here we go. All right, that ought to work. Greg? Oh, dear. All right, we'll try this again. Well, it was working well enough before. At least we got to hear him. He couldn't hear us. Well, let's try this one more time. How about this, Greg? Is this working? No. Okay. This is very interesting. It was bad, but it was not all this bad. Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, oh, there you are. Wow, look at that.
Hey.
Okay.
Everything just went away. It was so weird.
All right. Well.
So where'd you lose me?
You were talking about the last thing I heard was that you were commenting on, this being that this was a good piece. I guess we were, but I had lost track because things fluttered of what piece we were
what John Cassidy says is
York,
when
right?
Trump is not tied to a teleprompter,
Yes.
Trump often seems to say the most provocative thing that comes into his head with little thought for the consequences for his campaign or for the campaigns of other Republicans. He's like a small child trying to be the center of attention, even if that means he has turned himself into an object of outrage and ridicule. And it's funny because this morning Trump tweeted, all those pundits, they have no idea what's going on with me. They'll never understand me. And I'm thinking, of course they understand you, especially the ones who have kids.
Right. Okay.
If you have a 3-year-old, you totally get Donald Trump.
Yeah, I guess so. That's really all.
You're not paying attention to me. I'm going to hold my breath until you do.
Oh, but that only hurts yourself too. I mean, it does. It's interesting that he lashes out,
and it's only hurting yourself in the polls.
I guess so, but he's dragging everybody else down too. It actually reminded me of that alt-right Charles Johnson guy that got banned from Twitter. I guess back in his day,
alt control delete,
yeah, right?
Literally,
he was the guy rumored to have at some point in college, I guess, also pulled the "you all can't figure me out" move by pooping on the floor. Like, okay,
right. So Cassidy writes, if you take this view of Trump, there isn't much more to be said. He's the melting figure on the cover of this week's Time magazine. Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of sympathy for this interpretation, but just for the sake of argument, let's assume that Trump is smarter and less myopic than he seems. Let's assume that what he's really focused on isn't winning this year's election, a task he now realizes is beyond him, as the beginning of our segment started to point out, but creating a long-term Trumpian movement, a nationalistic, nativist, protectionist, authoritarian movement that will forever be associated with him. He's stolen it away from Pat Buchanan, but which also has the capacity to survive beyond him, just like it did beyond Buchanan. A movement that in some ways would resemble other right-wing political parties like France's National Front, Austria's Freedom Party, UKIP, but which would also harken back to earlier moments in American history, such as the rise of the anti-immigrant Know-Nothing movement in the 1840s and the formation a century later of the America First Committee, which sought a negotiated peace with Hitler. If establishing such a following and bringing about a historic realignment on the right was Trump's real intention, rather than moving into the Oval Office, some of what he's been saying lately would be more comprehensible. Not more accurate, not less odious, but more explicable on its own terms. And that is a scary thought, and that's really the basis of the article, which goes on to point out why all that is.
Okay. I don't even know how you can write these serious think pieces anymore, but everyone...
About him.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I understand it. It's just it's too frustrating for me to sit down at a keyboard and actually try and build an article around it. Every one of these articles takes one really good shot and is tweet-worthy, and then the rest of it is like, well, now you're thinking about it too much. But, we try to think about things seriously, and there is a serious danger underlying the whole thing, but I guess I'm getting fatigued at analyzing it at this point.
All right, so I'll give you two things that are just a little different.
I mean, I'm going to spend the whole rest of the show doing it anyway. Don't get me wrong.
but with
being sarcastic, yes. I'm exhausted by it, but I'll do it.
Also with sarcasm, bathos, and
yes. Well, I've been training
irony.
for 4 years for this, etc. It's the Olympics of bashing Trump.
Right. So forget about Trump. How about the other one running?
Which?
And, no, I'm not talking about Jill Stein.
Oh.
Alex Zeitzwald has a fairly interesting piece here in terms of where does Hillary Clinton really stand on the spectrum of political progressiveness.
Huh.
And the title of the article is While Wooing Republicans. Remember, she's trying to go after them over national security.
Oh. Yeah.
And yesterday, spokespeople for the campaign said in no way, shape, or form is she soliciting an endorsement from Henry Kissinger.
That's a fixation. Okay.
Right? It is a fixation, so she, just got it out there for people who are fixating on it. But the article title is While Wooing Republicans, Clinton Sticks to Progressive Policy. First paragraph, what economic policy concessions might Hillary Clinton offer up to Republicans? If her speech Thursday in Warren, Michigan is any indication, the answer is nothing.
Okay.
They could well have played the Al Pacino, Godfather 2. My offer is nothing.
Yeah.
In her first major economic address since her campaign began actively courting the Republicans turned up by Donald Trump, Clinton made no major pivot to the ideological center. Remember, that was a concern of voters during the primary, that she was only saying stuff for the primary, and then she was going to go back to center-right. Instead, Clinton reiterated several of the policy positions she adopted during her primary fight against Bernie Sanders, even while making a direct appeal to independent voters and Republicans. And this was a complaint, if you will recall, on the fourth night of the otherwise universally accepted success of the Democratic primary. Even Republicans who were trying to critique it said this is a fantastic job and did its job and were mad because she co-opted our themes of patriotism, the military, the flag, this, that, and everything else. We're really mad that we didn't do it and she did. But the only thing that turned me off is her speech.
Yeah.
What do they mean by that? Because she was progressive.
Right.
And she was progressive then. She was progressive yesterday, Thursday, when she was giving her economic speech. And the point of this article is she's being progressive. So all those people who wanted to make sure that they held their feet to the fire about being progressive, she is.
Yeah, well, on policy grounds.
Policy.
Yeah.
Oh, policy. Well, I mean, what else is there?
I don't know. I mean, when it comes to being progressive, there isn't anything else.
Other than language inclusion, and all that other stuff. But she's pretty good there, too.
LGBTQ in the correct order. I mean, I don't know. What else can you be progressive on? Yeah, there's language that you could use. And it is an interesting case in that, the Republicans wondering what kind of, or I guess pundits wondering what kind of concessions on economic policy might she make to them. We're in a rather unique situation in that it doesn't make any sense to make any kind of general election pivot for a number of reasons, not the least of which is you happen to have nominated a Republican who, I mean, what would be the point, say, of trying to set contrast with him on TPP? The guy is saying what much of the progressive Democratic base wanted to hear about TPP. So if you wanted to compete for Republican voters, I guess you could try just to stick with the progressive point of view on TPP. It would be I guess you could call it a concession to mainstream Republicans who are pro TPP, but I don't know. It is a rather unique situation here. Plus, of course, the weird sort of populism that Trump hints at but doesn't really adopt every once in a while. And when he says, hedge fund guys are getting away with murder sort of thing. But, I mean, right. There's no policy to contrast yourself with. What concession would you make to conservatives on any policy issue, given that they're represented on policy by Donald Trump? There's no policy there. So what do you?
There's no there at all. But you can look at it from the other side too. In this following sense, it was talked about. I guess Ryan Lizard brought up the idea that maybe she should give them a Supreme Court nomination because she'll have others.
Yes, right.
And there would be the grand surrender negotiation or whatever it is it was called. And then there's this in terms of economic policy. There's noting, as I did, that she's 8 points ahead. And she actually has a better chance of being 12 points ahead then she does too. In other words, there's more likelihood that we're still seeing an impending blowout than it is that all of a sudden it's going to be a super tight race that nobody can call. So she's winning, right? And so what are people writing? They're writing variations of she's winning, but she's not winning the right way.
Oh, what?
She should be making these concessions. Why isn't she doing it? Why isn't she up by 35? Why is she only up by 10?
Why
isn't she getting a 400 electoral? It's all part of the same thing.
Yes,
whatever it is, it's never good enough.
Why isn't she running a traditional campaign in this non-traditional?
Why doesn't she run more
campaign?
like a man?
I guess maybe that's the question. Although,
why doesn't she speak like one?
I don't know. Hey, you know what just happened?
Why doesn't she lower her voice? What just happened?
This was very strange. I mentioned the other day. I finally got like a modern iPhone the other day, and all of a sudden I was just talking to you, and then all of a sudden the phone started talking at me, and so I'm trying to muffle it. Get out of here! You're ruining the show. I think I was just talking to you about the concessions thing, and I think I said. So something so seriously, what would you...
Oh, Siri came on and she wanted to talk to you.
And
now she's telling you about the Olympics.
Well, no, what she started to tell me...
Which is good, because that's going to be my next topic.
Was it started to take dictation of what I was saying on the show, and then after a while, after I guess a short pause... Then it started talking to me saying, okay, I'm searching the web for what kind of concessions would Hillary Clinton make. I'm like, what? Why is it? Oh, my God. This phone
that's
is
what
creepy.
I said, literally.
Yeah, right. I actually know the answer to that, and it's not on Google. Don't try to search it for me. But, yeah, I guess I have to be careful about saying.
My wife yells at me all the time. What are you asking Siri for? She's always wrong.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I'm just learning about the use of Siri, like, what are we, 5 years into Siri here? But
hey,
I guess I'm looking out for that.
You want to see a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful smile?
Oh, all right.
Click the last article I just sent you on Skype.
Article. Okay.
While I read it to your listeners. Rio 2016, Simone Manuel's Olympic gold is also a victory over swimming's racist history.
Oh, it's going to explain why.
People work so hard to keep African Americans out of pools. They lost. It's a pretty good summary of some of the racism involved with municipal swimming pools and how all that worked.
That's a Voxy piece.
Yeah, Philip Merrill College of Journalism professor and frequent ESPN commentator Kevin Blackistone. Blackistone, 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 said it well in the moments after Manuel got the gold. If you knew how Jim Crow metastasized in America's pools, you know how significant Simone Manuel's gold medal is. And this explains it. So I just thought I'd leave that with you as I tootle off to work. I want to thank you so much for having me on the show all week. And I'll be back on Monday, we think, power permitting.
Okay.
And we'll do it again. A lot will happen, and I'm sure Trump will do a whole bunch of stupid stuff over the weekend because that's what he's about.
And in fact, Armando notes for me that he is going to do some of his stupid things tomorrow in Fairfield. So stay away. Or go. I don't know how you feel about that. But if you ever
mean
wanted
Trump?
to see... Yeah. Well, Armando, he's, I think, going to do stupid things somewhere else, but... He might maybe he should go to the rally at Fairfield, and you should go with him.
Maybe I should go, but I won't.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, it's a good thing to say. Yeah, maybe I should. I recognize the historical and sociological interest in it, but I have to wash my hair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm too young to have gone to a Nazi rally. Maybe I should try going to one of these just to see what it's like.
Sure.
But
you got the
I won't. I'll
opportunity.
just read about it. And, there's some discussion here about what he's doing and where he's going and why. Certainly, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We get what's going on with Maine. He went to Portland because it's the media capital. Mm-hmm. And even though it was the wrong district in the sense that he's got a better chance of winning Maine's second district and Portland is in the first district because it's the media center, everybody in Maine will hear about it. That we get. In Fairfield County, that's where the population is here in Connecticut. But that's not where the media is. The media is in Hartford especially, but also in New Haven. So if you pick one of those two cities to go to, that would make sense.
I guess so. But they'll travel.
There's no media in Bridgeport.
I mean, they'll drive.
To speak of.
No
television.
Certainly someone will send a van to Fairfield. And,
yeah, well, it's very close to New York City. It's only an hour away with no traffic, and if you have a police escort, that's certainly not that far. And he doesn't like to travel, and he doesn't like to sleep away from home.
Right.
And he's a germaphobe anyway, and he's got a whole bunch of other hang-ups that people don't talk about because they're too busy talking about the bizarre stuff that he's doing that actually affects everybody else. Mm-hmm. But why would you go to Fairfield to do anything as opposed to going to Hartford? That would be the place you'd want to go if you want a whole lot of people to see it.
All right. I mean,
but we'll see. We'll see what he does.
I don't know. I figured out finally why he came. I mean, Virginia is a swing state, and he came here and he went to Ashburn, but largely I think because he has a golf course nearby and he wanted to stop in on that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he has something in Westchester so we can go play golf afterwards. Fairfield is where you got to raise money if you're a Republican. That's for sure.
But he's not even doing that. So.
I know. So I'm not totally sure what he's doing, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anyway, I got to go, but thanks so much. It would be irresponsible not to speculate, so go at it.
Okay.
Take care, and I'll talk to you Monday.
All right. Thanks very much. We'll see you then. Oh, yes. Actually, I'll need to clear things up. Monday, I will be on the road and traveling. Not going to Fairfield, Connecticut, but I think we'll be in reruns next week. But I'll remind you, Greg. Don't worry about it. I don't talk about it enough. I'm embarrassed by the fact that I'm taking a break, but doesn't everybody need one? Yeah, I hate to leave in the middle of all the action, but I guarantee you, just as stupid. Things will be just as stupid when I get back. The only thing that'll really be difficult is there will be things that happen during the week that I'll be sitting in either in the car or the hotel room or enjoying the view of Niagara Falls, for instance, and saying, damn, I wish I was on the radio and talking about this because it's so ridiculous. But all of you'll all be talking about it anyway, and we'll all chat on Twitter. You know how the stuff goes. It never is far from... I'm never far from Twitter, even though now I guess I have to distance myself physically somehow from my phone so that every time I say seriously, it doesn't turn on. So far, that's not working. I wonder what really did trigger it. Siri is a weird... Oh, why am I saying it out loud? It's crazy. It's a very weird thing, though, that it turns on. I don't think I like this idea. I guess out of convenience, you're supposed to be able to, without turning anything on, without hitting any buttons, just talk to that digital assistant lady and get things looked up or get the help you need or whatever, so you don't have to press any buttons or anything. But what that means, I guess, is your phone is sitting there with the microphone open waiting for you to say that name. And I guess it's okay if, you're supposed to think it's okay if the phone doesn't look like it's doing anything ever, but I guess what we don't know is if it's on and keyed in and listening and keying in for the mention of the digital assistant's name, what else is it hearing and what is it doing with what it's hearing? I don't know. It's sending it to the NSA for all I know. It's very weird. And I want all the convenience of all of these fantastic features, but I find myself having to go through and turn off all the location services and everything. You'd be amazed. Well, you wouldn't, because 9 out of 10 of you probably have either an iPhone or a smartphone just like this, and you've gone through, too, and turned off location services. You'd be amazed, though, if you were living under a rock, I guess. One, you'd be amazed at phones and apps. But two, once you got acclimated to that, you would still be amazed at the apps that think it's necessary to have location services on all the time. Like in case you want to look up, the films that were shot in the location where you're in now, IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, will, track your location in case you want to, whatever it is. Some things make more sense than others, but a lot of it makes no sense, and a lot of it, I think, is just, I think we can get people to give us permissions in a sort of a long disclaimer thing. Just check this off. No one ever reads it anyway. If they can turn on location services and track people, then I can mine that data and sell that, because I'm certainly not making $1 million on the where are the best French fries near me app, but I can sell the data about consumer patterns and where these people go. So I think that's where the money is. Anyway, so much for creepy corporate espionage. I can't open this Vox piece for whatever reason. I would like an explainer as to why this article won't open on Vox. That would be valuable to me. But I will note this for the record. I did see this morning some discussion of the fact that I don't know how exactly to approach this issue. Last night's victory from the swimming pool. Let me look up the tweets that I found. I think I can just do it this way, and that way everybody gets the credit that they're due. Is this? Dang! Now I'm not even certain that I know who tweeted it. But anyway, Simone Manuel, who won I don't even know what race it was. I watched the end of it too, but I can't keep these races straight in the pool. Anyway, won the gold medal. And she's African American. And it was a big deal because, and you got to get the language just right, she's the first African American woman to win an individual gold medal in swimming for the United States. Is that how detailed it has to get? And it kind of got, in passing when you hear it, I don't know. Sometimes it was more broadly read, etc. And there shouldn't be any diminishing of that accomplishment in exploring whether there are, for instance, other women of African descent who have medaled in swimming anywhere or for any team or for the United States or not. I mean, it feels weird to have to fact check something like that. Like, why bother? Why can't you just revel in the moment and say this is an awesome medal? And we can do that. But on the other hand, I guess you also would say, well, if there's a history, even if it's not extensive, of African American women or women of African descent swimming for other countries, doing well, putting up world-class performances, you should not ignore that, and it certainly shouldn't be seen as taking anything away from Manuel's win. But, imagine if you were a African American woman who swam for the United States Olympic team at some point and either medaled, didn't medal, or, but put in a remarkable performance, and everybody's like, well, that was in the 70s, so I forgot all about it, right? That kind of thing. Well, as it turns out, I guess the real point is that the history is still thin for all the reasons that Vox put out there, that there were actual institutional racist barriers to black people swimming, which is nuts. And, thank God we're mostly well past that, although occasionally in the modern United States we do run into that problem related to pools, which is really amazing that would still even happen. That seems like such ridiculous medieval weirdness to have any sort of reaction like that. I mean, as though blackness were going to seep into the water and then into other people's skin. I don't know what the hell people were thinking. Anyway, it was a great win. We have that. And also, of course, let's see, gymnastics was a big deal last night. I am moving at it. The phase of the Olympics I'm mostly interested in is finally approaching. More of a track and field interest than swimming and gymnastics, but it is interesting what NBC programming has done to me with this. I love watching the Olympics, even though I've recently found out, along with the rest of you, that they're actually fairly disgusting and horrible and a human rights nightmare, etc., etc. And yet the thrill of victory and agony of defeat and whatnot, even though that's not NBC but ABC, they can sue each other and straighten that one out. I enjoy watching it, but I think I am actually somewhat interested I have to admit, in the gymnastics and the swimming now, but largely because, for whatever reason, NBC deems swimming and gymnastics to be enormously important events and ones that all Americans want to know about and see more or less from beginning to end, and they will videotape it during the day and play it during prime time to make sure that the most people can see it, even though I don't even know whether that's still the case given the technology we all have access to these days. But they've made me, reluctantly, I guess, into a fan of the ongoing drama of these sports from Olympics to Olympics, because that's now part of the Olympic tradition to me. Just like the theme music that NBC plays for the Olympics, which I don't know whether other people do this, but for most of my younger life, I confused with the Olympic theme itself. You know, what's the Olympic theme? What is the Olympic anthem? The Olympic music. For Americans, it's the NBC branded Olympic music that they use going into and coming out of commercials. You know, the dun 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 dun. You know that song, right? That's not the Olympic theme. Everybody knows it by now, I guess. But I think when I, became of age to understand the difference between, okay, this is an NBC-owned piece of music and the Olympic theme. And when I went to the Olympics, I was fortunate enough to go with my dad in 1984 to the LA Olympics. And when I watched the opening ceremonies from home, because we went, again, for the track and field, which doesn't start right away. I watched the opening ceremonies at home, and they said, and now, they bring in the Olympic flag. We'll play the Olympic anthem for raising the flag, and they played this thing, and I'm like, what happened to the one I like from TV? That's not it. Well, they fooled me. But I think they've also fooled me into thinking I'm an American who cares about swimming and gymnastics, too. Which is weird, because I generally don't. But now the Olympics are coming. The Olympics are coming. What does that mean? For me, that means a week of watching swimming and gymnastics, even though I know I don't really like them. The first couple of days are exciting, mostly, to me, because they don't have footage of that stuff yet to show me. So the likelihood of seeing some crazy sport that has just never aired in the United States is out there. If you flip through their channels, you'll see team handball. You'll see. I still haven't run into judo on TV, though I watch it online. The fencing is on. I don't really care about beach volleyball that much, except insofar as I sometimes wonder, how come they make the girls dress in, why do the women have to wear bikinis and the guys wear tank tops and long shorts? I mean, if sand gets in long shorts, so you wear a bikini to avoid that, does sand somehow not get in male shorts? I don't really know. Not that I really cared to see any of the men in thongs, but that's not a universal feeling. So maybe, I don't really know. I have no idea. And I actually looked it up a little bit because I'm a process guy. And then I found out you don't have to wear those bikinis. That is something of a choice, but they have a governing body, and it turns out that there are certain outfits you can wear and certain outfits you can't wear. And bikini is your choice if you don't want full body coverage. And yes, they do, in fact, have full body coverage available, well, for anybody who wants it. But if you were wondering, for instance, well, can observant Muslim women not play beach volleyball because they can't wear these bikinis? No, they can, and they have acceptable, approved, full coverage clothing for them. And in fact, the other day, the Egyptian team was on and wearing them. And of course that drew complaints from Americans who normally some Americans would probably complain just because, hey, these are women on a beach and they're not in a bikini. That's a violation of my constitutional rights. And others, of course, will use the opportunity to say, oh, Muslims, so everything that they do is wrong. And but how exactly do I argue about this one. It's that they don't have enough freedom, even though here they are playing beach volleyball in Rio. Well, you see, their oppressive, quote-unquote, religion, remember who we're talking about doing the complaining here, is prohibiting them from being free enough to wear bikinis like the other women who look relatively ridiculous in their bikinis. And so therefore, and then it turns out, the Swiss volleyball team actually also prefers the full body coverage thing, and I don't know whether that's a UV light exposure thing and they're trying to save their skin, or whether it's hey, sand does get everywhere, and while the bikini minimizes the number of places it can get, a full body coverage does an even better job, but it's probably hot as blazes. I don't know. Anyway, it turns out that Muslim countries are not the only ones who wear full body coverage. So you learn something new every day, even on a Friday on Kagro in the Morning Show. So there's something for you. Just my personal view of what's been going on at the Olympics and what I've learned along the way, and how come I care about swimming and gymnastics, and realizing that it's because they forced me to. And now I feel manipulated. Why can't they make handball and fencing more popular in the United States? Well, you can't make fencing will never work. I mean, it is popular. People do fence in the United States. Plenty of fencing going on. Fencers are weird, though, I think. Here's a broad sweeping statement for you. They're all weirdos. Maybe it's something about the physical structure of the sport and what you have to wear, and the equipment you need, and the field of play for fencing. But I noticed this is a very strange culture. Around every sport develops its own culture, and the way fencing people get emotional, some usually celebrating a point, or I guess occasionally expressing frustration about having had a point scored upon you, but mostly the celebration. They all do that sort of yes fist pump thing, but they're very chess-like in the way they do it. People are very weird, and it seems sort of like socially maladjusted in the way they get so intense about things. But all sports at the Olympic level, I imagine you got to have the intensity turned to 1100. So maybe that's it. Plus also, I mean, you can't express your joy facially because you're wearing a mask. So, if you want everybody to know you're excited about it, all you can do is fist pump. You're attached to a wire. You can't go running and jumping and gyrating. You got to stay in this lane pretty much. So I guess maybe that explains it more than the weirdness of it. Except that, fencing people that I've met, by and large, kind of oddballs. But hey, what can you do? It's like saying computer, the IT guy at the company strikes you as a certain type. Not always, yes, but fencers, same thing. Let's see. Oh, here's a comment from listener Cotton Science, who tweets, Europeans complaining that American morals prohibit topless beach volleyball. So there you go. That's probably true. I don't know who they're complaining to, but we could probably reach some sort of an accord on that somewhere along the line. Rio would have been the place for it, I guess. That must be something. Actually, the locals at Rio must have been looking at the bikinis for the beach volleyball and saying, they must be hot as blazes in those things. Why are they doing that to themselves? Strange people. I'm not even sure why we have beach volleyball. But I did learn also that beach volleyball, there's a DJ. They play music all through the thing. And I guess to maintain the original party atmosphere feel of beach volleyball, which had its origins, of course, outside the Olympics, there's music and drinking and bikinis. And I guess they didn't want to give that up when they went Olympic. Very interesting, and not exactly, where we usually spend our time on the show. But hey, why not take a different direction? Why not? Because there's plenty of other things we could be discussing, and maybe we ought to get to some of those instead. Let me see if I can't find something more traditional interest for us. Okay. Look at this. Somebody else now saying there's track and field finally on TV. I thought it didn't start until Sunday, but good. They're finally beginning with that. All right. Just by the way of dropping this comment from our earlier discussion about privacy issues and your telephone listening to you, Justice was noting more likely that the people who are more likely than mining the data tracking information for a weird little app company would be selling the information to a third-party vendor. And that's probably, that's certainly an easier way to turn it into cash, right? So you'll start to get location-based ads inside those apps and others. And other things of like, although he says you now get ads for Hillary concessions, not the sort of concessions she needs to make to Republicans in order to woo their votes, but like coffee cups, T-shirts, buttons, Bill and Hill kissing ceramic knickknacks. Really? Have you seen that one? That's very interesting. Would I buy some of those? For the camp value alone, I would think yes. All right. So what's occupying space in pocket and needs to get out today? That's what Friday shows are going to be all about. Let's see. How about this? Here's some pure politics for you. This was shared with me by the folks at NCEC. You remember that they were on with us. Mark Gersh, the executive director of the National Committee for an Effective Congress, who joined us not all that long ago, shares his latest, which you'll no doubt be interested in, and it is entitled, Yes, the House of Representatives is in play. Good. That's something we have been conditioned not to wish too loudly for, although everybody's got it in mind, and so we might as well address this thing. And it is, after all, August, and I think traditionally, for experts like those at the NCEC, I think this is traditionally when they'll start chiming in on things like that. So let's read it. All year, we, at the NCEC, I suppose, have been skeptical of a return to the majority for U.S. House Democrats, which remains the case. Oh, all right, well, that's skeptical, but not ruling it out. But there is, they say, a dim light flickering at the end of the tunnel. And they don't mean Paul Ryan. I get you. The cratering of support for Donald Trump among white college-educated women, and to some extent men with college degrees, could hamper GOP efforts in a number of districts. National political trends suggest that the 30-seat gain needed to recapture the House is not beyond reach. Ooh, okay. First order of business, though, minimizing Democratic losses. In order for a majority to materialize, the Democrats must minimize their losses to virtually none. Okay, that's not easy to do, but it's doable. Apart from the near-certain loss of Florida's 2nd District due to an otherwise favorable court-ordered redistricting plan, this seems at least possible. The 2006 election provides a blueprint when the Democrats gained 30 House seats without relinquishing a single one. We all remember that one. Nevertheless, a repeat of this performance is unlikely. Several districts present a challenge to Democrats in 2016. Open seats in Arizona's 1st, Florida's 18th, and New York's 3rd district have put them in a defensive posture. Additionally, some rural districts may also be trouble spots, including Minnesota's 8th or Nebraska's 2nd district. What about these favorable redistricting decisions we heard about in the last week or so, right? Assuming Democrats can limit losses to just 2 seats, they would have to capture at least 32 Republican-held districts. We stated before, and there's a link to their stating in the past, that the Democrats are virtually guaranteed to capture 3 Republican-held seats, Florida's 10th and 13th district, as well as Virginia's 4th, owing to favorable redistricting-related court decisions. Okay, 3, but we need 32. What about Republicans in majority Democratic districts? There are many. And should that be the focus? Is that where we're likely to see those things change? If the advantage holds in those three districts, where aforementioned, Florida's 10th and 13th, Virginia's 4th, then Dems need 29 more to capture the House. Closing the gap begins with the majority Democratic districts that Republicans won in the 2014 landslide. And it's always easiest to dislodge first-termers anyway, so why not, right? Among them are 8 Republican freshmen in districts Hillary Clinton will likely carry in November. Each district features elements increasingly favorable to Democrats, such as a mix of suburban and Latino voters, with an assist from presidential year turnout levels. Converting each of these to the Democratic column leaves the party 21 seats short of a majority. In other words, where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In which 8 districts does the favorable combination of suburban and Latino voters plus boosts in presidential year turnout levels, and we expect Hillary Clinton to outperform everything, with especially versus Donald Trump. And also, there's already a registration advantage for Democrats in these districts, but they happen to be held by Republicans anyway. Where are they? Florida, the 26th district, where Republican incumbent Carlos Curbelo is on the ballot. Iowa's 1st district, Rod Blum. Illinois' 10th, Robert Dole. By the way, all these people who you almost never hear anything about. It's very difficult to break through as a freshman. The media morass, I guess. Let's see. Maine's 2nd district, which we mentioned earlier on the show when we were talking to Greg. Bruce Poliquin. Amazing. Never heard of the guy. Frank Guinta in New Hampshire's 1st district I have. Crescent Hardy, Nevada's 4th district. John Katko in New York's 24th. And Will Hurd, of whom I have not, in Texas 23rd. Next up, first-tier open seats. As covered in previous posts, Democrats must exploit the open seats vacated by Republican incumbents in marginal districts, like Minnesota's 2nd, where John Klein is retiring, Nevada's 3rd, where Joe Heck will be running for the Senate, New York's 22nd, where Richard Hanna is retiring and says he'll vote for Clinton, and Pennsylvania's 8th, where Mike Fitzpatrick is retiring. And that's the way they always refer to it. What do we know about Pennsylvania's 8th district? Pennsylvania's 8th, where Mike Fitzpatrick, and that's all you need to know. It's a tolerant district. The best possibilities exist in Minnesota's 2nd, as mentioned above, the Twin Cities exurbs, and Pennsylvania's 8th, which is a suburban Philly district, where the district totals for Obama and Romney were the closest in the country in 2012. A 3rd strong open seat prospect, Nevada's 3rd, based in Las Vegas, currently held by Joe Heck. New York's 22nd district also appears to be highly competitive, as retiring Republican Congressman Richard Hanna recently endorsed Hillary Clinton. The endorsement, combined with Clinton's likely success in the district, could deliver the seat. Democratic victories in at least 3 of these contests, leaving us 18 shy of a majority. Let's continue to attack the numbers. The results from more challenging open seat contests in these Republican-leaning districts will determine how much momentum is carrying Democrats toward a 30-seat gain. The list is more extensive, but less promising in terms of prospective victories. These districts are comprised to a larger extent of white working-class voters with whom Hillary Clinton has a hard time connecting, allegedly. Where are they? Florida's 6th, Indiana's 9th, Michigan's 1st, New York 19, Pennsylvania's 16, Virginia's 5th district, and Wisconsin's 8th district. Ron DeSantis, Todd Young, Dan Benishek, Chris Gibson, Joe Pitts, Robert Hurt, and Reed Ribble, which really sounds like a fake name if you ask me. Should 1 or 2 of these districts in this group change hands, there may be enough repudiation of Donald Trump among suburban voters to propel Democrats to within striking distance of that 30-seat gain. Now, What about vulnerable Republican incumbents? Here is the pivotal list of districts that will make, break, or come tantalizingly close to fulfilling Democratic aspirations. In Arizona, the 2nd district, the Republican incumbent Martha McSally. Another Mc something or other. Okay. McMarshall, McLuhan, McMonkey, McBean. You know. All right. So some notes here. The top of the ticket will have a huge impact here. Huge. McSally won the closest House contest in the nation in 2014. She has since solidified her support level, but Trump could undermine it. In Colorado, in the 6th district, Mike Kaufman, Denver exurbs. Kaufman has refused to endorse Trump. Popular State Representative Morgan Carroll is a formidable challenger in a rapidly changing Arapahoe County-based district. Florida, the 7th district, John Mica, marginal Orlando-based district. The incumbent, Mica, must face a more Democratic constituency after court-ordered redistricting. In Iowa's 3rd district, David Young, another 2014 winner who owes his success to a Republican wave rather than aberrational turnout. Polls show he may lose this year. Those are good. Kansas, 3rd district, Kevin Yoder, an upscale Kansas City-based district with a staunchly conservative incumbent, is one of the most highly educated districts in the country. Minnesota's 3rd, Eric Paulson, highly educated Twin Cities suburbs. Trump could lose this district by 15 points. New Jersey's 5th, where Scott Garrett is the incumbent, an upscale New York City suburban area, sprinkled with emerging exurbs. New York's 1st district, Lee Zeldin, a 50-50 district in Long Island, where Trump is popular at present. Zeldin is another 2014 freshman who capitalized on an ethical lapse by former Democratic incumbent. Utah's 4th district, where Mia Love is the incumbent, although her polling is said to look pretty good. I think I saw that fly by on Twitter in the last couple of days. The remarkable unpopularity of Trump, though, may produce a shocker. This district was surprisingly close in 2014. And finally, Virginia's 10th district. I know someone who lives there. Barbara Comstock lives there, among other people. She's the incumbent, and she's horrible and has to go. But Representative Comstock has refused to endorse Trump, but she might not survive in the upscale Virginia suburbs and exurbs, where Donald Trump was just campaigning the other day and where he owns a golf course, where Trump may have difficulty winning even 45% of the vote. It's not super hospitable for him. We'll say that. All right, and on to the last remaining category, majority-minority districts. Winning most of the above races, a growing possibility, still leaves Democrats a few seats short. As in the presidential election, minority turnout will be a huge indicator of Democratic success should Donald Trump's unpopularity among non-white voters persist, leading to an elevated turnout among this cohort. We could see additional Republican losses in majority-minority districts that are currently under the radar. California will serve as a bellwether, as there are several majority non-white districts where this could play out. Also, watch the changing voter behavior of young Cuban Americans in Florida. Our districts here are the first tier of them, all in California and Florida. In fact, only one of them is in Florida, and we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 districts. The first 4, California's 10th, 21st, 25th, and 39th districts, where the incumbents are Jeff Denham, where more than 27% of the citizen voting age population is Latino. In the 21st district, incumbent David Valadao, how does he say that? I never heard of him. Valadao. Valadao? No idea. President Obama carried that district, though, both in 2008 and 2012, expanding on his vote share. That is to say, in 2008, he carried it by 52.5%. 2012, he took 55.7%. In the 25th district, Steve Knight, the Hispanic share of the citizen voting age population in the 25th district has grown by 3.5% from 2010 to 2014 and has only continued to grow. Good news there, generally speaking, for Democrats. Ed Royce's 39th district, overall the non-white share of the voting age population of this district is over 60%, with a growing population of Asian Americans. And down to Florida in the 27th district, Ileana Ross-Lehtinen. The Cuban vote is paramount here, but like they noted, changing voting behavior of young Cuban Americans in Florida. Armando can tell you whether that's going to play out or not. Other potential Republican districts in play, California's 49th Darrell Issa's district, substantial Asian American population, highly educated white voters, signal trouble for him, a top Democratic recruit, retired Marine Douglas Applegate also looms. Colorado's third, where Scott Tipton holds the seat. More than 25% of the voting age population is non-white voters, including a significant population of Latino voters, 18%. Hillary Clinton should be competitive in this district. Michigan's 7th, Tim Walberg. Obama carried this district in 2008 and received more than 48% in 2012. Gretchen Driscoll is a solid candidate with decent fundraising, running against an incumbent that is too conservative for the district. Michigan's 11th, Dave Trott, prototype anti-Trump district. Upscale, highly educated population. Obama carried the district in 2008. The Democratic House candidate received more than 46% of the vote in 2012. Looking good there. New York's 2nd district, Peter King. Dwayne Gregory is a strong candidate. On paper, this district should be competitive. 4,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans, and women typically account for 55% of the vote. New York's 23rd district, Tom Reed. He draws a strong challenger in John Plum. And in Washington's 8th district, where Dave Reichert, for some reason, still holds the seat, an upscale district subject to a Trump implosion. Retaking the House remains a difficult task. If any significant reversal of fortune emerges for the Trump campaign, the likelihood of a 12 to 15 seat pickup will return. With less than 100 days till Election Day, the possibility of a Democratic wave is growing. Still not their bet. We have to say that, but at least it's growing. And now you've got all the detail you need to know where you should be looking. And when these races rate mention in the news, your eyebrows will go up and you'll say, I knew Daily Kos Radio was like getting the newspaper a few days early. You'll see it happen. All right, let's shift over to crazy Trump news. And we'll see if we can keep it to short blasts to get the most in there. You really need to know how many crazy things are happening so that you can stay on top of all of the weekend chatter in between Olympic events. 1, North Carolina. Let's go down there quickly. Dateline, North Carolina. Come on, Pocket, bring it up. Let's see. TPM report here we'll be relying on for this news. Ex-staffer alleges Trump camp didn't act after another staffer pulled gun. What? It's got a little bit of everything we love in this one. As it turns out, in a late update, the guy in question, the guy with the gun, has resigned, but hadn't done so by the time the story broke first time around. Ready? A former staffer for Donald Trump's campaign in North Carolina is alleging in a lawsuit, what do you know, he's being sued, that the campaign improperly handled a case in which another staffer pulled a gun on him. Local TV station WBTV first reported. The suit obtained by WBTV was filed Wednesday by Vincent Bordini, who is not the guy who pulled the gun, you anti-Italian racists, in Mecklenburg County Superior Court in North Carolina. It names Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated and former State Director Earl Phillip as defendants. The suit alleges that on February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, Bordini and Phillip were driving in Phillips's Jeep when Phillip produced a pistol, put his right index finger on the trigger, no, until you're ready to shoot, and drove the barrel, not the car, but the barrel of the gun, into Vincent's kneecap. Philip pushed the barrel into Vincent's knee. The barrel's pressure crinkled Vincent's blue jeans. I don't know why you would put that in a legal filing. Am I supposed to feel it? Oh my God, he crinkled your blue jeans. Do you iron them? Is that the problem? All right, well, look at the downward pressure on this. It crinkled his blue jeans. That is really sad. Anyway, Philip ominously stared sidewise at Vincent while driving the Jeep, which is dangerous, down the road and the barrel into Vincent. Dual use of the drive. That's nice. Well constructed. Vincent froze. Philip's gun was loaded and the safety was off. A bump in the road would likely result in a bullet hole and worse in Vincent's knee. Well, that's true. That would have been some kind of gun fail. The suit states that Bordini then went immediately to Trump's regional director for Western Carolina and reported the incident. And guess what? This is amazing. You'd think then the guy would go, oh my God, I never heard of such a thing. But instead, the director then allegedly told Bordini that he had also had a similar experience with Philip. Now, at that point, do you say, good, then he'll be sympathetic and we'll finally get rid of this guy? Or do you say at that point, oh my God, you mean the boss that I'm complaining to, also got a gun stuck in your knee and oh my God, what are you doing? Well, anyway, I don't know. Maybe he's not the boss. He's the director, regional director for Western Carolina. But the other guy is the North Carolina state director. I don't know who outranks who there, but it doesn't seem to matter. The guy was pulling guns on everybody and nobody did anything. The suit alleged Bordini then reported the incident to Trump's national field director, Stuart Jolly. And, quote, nothing happened. Well, the guy's too jolly. That's the problem. You needed to report it to Stuart Hardass. What's wrong with you? Bordini next brought the matter to Trump's campaign manager at the time, Corey Lewandowski, who was, of course, busy assaulting reporters, so unlikely that he was going to take any interest in that. The complaint again alleges nothing happened, and Philip remained with the Trump campaign. According to the complaint, Bordini was a, quote, passionate Donald J. Trump supporter. He decided that putting his head down and soldiering on was the best thing he could do for Mr. Trump. He had faith the Trump campaign would handle the situation internally. It's called management. He ultimately resigned from the campaign on March 12th. Bordini alleges assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligent infliction of emotional distress. Wow. In the suit, neither the Trump campaign nor Earl Phillip responded to requests for comment. You can read the full court complaint over at TPM. And again, the late update, Earl Phillip has resigned. Anything interesting from the resignation statement? Let's take a look. I have retained legal counsel. I have also stepped down from all affiliation with any and all organizations associated with Donald J. Trump for president, to include the campaign and National Diversity Coalition for Trump. Really? Is he a diverse kind of guy? I don't know. Anyway, is there anything else here? No, just a recounting of the story. How fascinating that they are now pulling guns on one another. But thankfully, no gun fail. That's good news. It was limited to, there was plenty of other gun fail around the country. You should never bet on no gun fail. That's a losing bet. Okay, let's see. Here's another fun story. Let's see. The first place to start with this one, I guess, would be the Daily Beast. That's where I saw it first, and I'll give you the headline. But let's take a skim here and see whether we're better off with this piece or the Vox piece, which really gets to the heart of things. Headline over at the Daily Beast. This is a piece written by Gideon Resnick and Brady Zadrozny. Donald Trump says he gives his workers child care. His workers say that's baloney. Very interesting. I think, though, Vox really gets to the heart of the issue very quickly right out of the box. So I'm going to go over to them, right out of the box, over to Vox. Trump said he gave his staff child care, but the programs were actually for his hotel guests. Yes, another one of those stupid, needless, hyperbolic exaggerations that end up getting him in trouble. Emily Crockett reporting this one for Vox. Keep in mind in the background here, the one decent sounding, sensible speech given at the Republican National Convention was given by Ivanka Trump about a candidate who doesn't exist, but who she wishes existed in her father. And he was, of course, always concerned about women in the workplace, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I would also lay this alongside Trump's claim that he didn't make fun of that reporter for his disability, because it's not even possible for him to make fun of people with disabilities, because he loves people with disabilities. How do you know he loves people with disabilities so much? Not that that rules anything out anyway, but how do you know he loves people with disabilities? He's spent millions of dollars making his buildings accessible to people with disabilities. Except, of course, as we all know, it's required by federal law that he make his buildings accessible to people with disabilities. And, of course, he has been sued repeatedly by the federal government and by private individuals for failing to live up to those federal requirements. And the millions of dollars he has spent include fines for not actually doing it and the costs of remedial work to go back and correct the mistakes that he made in not making the buildings accessible in the first place. So in a similar vein, we have this. Donald Trump is really testing the limits of irony with this one. Not sarcasm, but irony. On the campaign trail in Iowa a few months ago, Trump boasted that he provided on-site child care for his employees. I don't remember him making that boast, but I don't think I cared very much what he was saying in Iowa. That was the problem. But according to Jill Colvin and Catherine Lucy at the Associated Press, I guess that's where the credit goes for this story, this appears to be flatly untrue. Trump has been boasting about child care programs that are only available for guests of his hotels and golf clubs, not staff. That's really rather amazing blurring of the lines. And I wonder how he said it, but maybe we'll see in this article. But I can imagine him now saying, I never said that. I said we love women and kids, and we're very family friendly at all Trump properties. We have childcare available at all of our at the golf clubs, at Trump Tower, at our hotels. Are you kidding? I love women. I love kids. And in fact, that's all he could say. Well, I did say that. I didn't say it was for the employees. I mean, please, I don't care about those people. In Iowa last November, Trump cited two programs, Trump Kids and Trumpeteers. Of course, there are two programs that have the word Trump in them because they're his. Anyway, as examples of child care services offered at his hotels. Yet both of these programs are offered to patrons of Trump's luxury properties, people who are rich and who pay him money. Then he does. Oh, there are profit centers that are actually child care? Yeah, I got plenty of those. No, there's no child care that costs him money at these places. Anyway, this is what the AP has to report on these things. Trump Kids is described on the Trump Hotel Collection website as, quote, a special travel program designed to help make your next family vacation a big hit, unquote. Its offerings include kid-friendly amenities like kiddie cocktails, coloring books, and no-tier bath amenities. That, by the way, is some thin stuff when it comes to, well, Trump Kids. What's your Trump? Wow, they have a kids program. Does that mean like activities for kids? No, it means you can get you can get a Shirley Temple from our restaurant if you want. We have coloring books that we give out to kids who come and, if you ask for a kids menu at the restaurant, they'll give you a coloring book and a placemat and a box of 3 crayons like they do at, Red Robin or whatever, and Applebee's. I don't know if Applebee's does it. Who knows? But you can say whatever you want about Applebee's. It doesn't matter. It's a free game. So, I mean, is that really a kids program? The box of 3 crayons? So you can get a Shirley Temple, you get the crayons, and but up in the room there is that. There's no tier bath amenities, which I don't know whether they put in every room or whether that's a special thing you can call ahead. Like, I want a refrigerator in my room, and also I have kids, and I need no tier bath amenities. Fine, we'll take out the dusty old box from housekeeping cart and give you a couple of bottles of knockoff Johnson's no tier baby shampoo. That's Trump Kids. The Trumpeteer program, it says, is described on the website of Trump National Golf Club in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a program created specifically for our youngest members, ages 3 to 12, which offers daily and evening childcare, monthly newsletters, and weekly events. I don't know why you would need a monthly newsletter, but probably the hours of operation. So, okay, if you go golfing or you go there for lunch or whatever, you can drop your kids off at childcare. And at least that's real childcare, but it's certainly not for the employees. Employees at Trump's hotels and clubs were confused and surprised when the AP asked them whether their employers provide childcare. And here a quote from the AP here. Jaramillo is a mother of 4 children who, I don't know, they don't quote the person's first name, right? They just grab the part of the quote that gets to the heart of the matter. A mother of 4. She's worked for the hotel for nearly 8 years, and she says it would make it much more easy to take our kids to daycare at work. And she laughed when told of Trump's comments from Iowa about childcare. If they have childcare, at least they should tell us. Trump employee handbooks and online benefit guides reviewed by the AP also make no mention of childcare. It's a rather tone-deaf screw-up from Trump, who has very recently turned child care into a major policy proposal for his campaign. It doesn't help. That's how it got back in the news. It doesn't help that the child care policy he's now proposing also helps well-off Americans substantially more than low-income families, as Vox's Libby Nelson explains. At that same Iowa campaign stop, Trump made remarks suggesting that he doesn't even really know how child care works. You know, it's not expensive for a company to do it, Trump said. You need 1 person or 2 people, and you need some blocks and some swings and some toys. Wow. Okay. But the rest of it is all regulatory nonsense anyway, right? It has seemed pretty abrupt and out of character for Trump to suddenly style himself as the candidate for affordable child care. Child care and other women's workplace policy issues, and by the way, there are men who have children too, are more of an Ivanka thing, and Trump has only mentioned child care twice on the campaign trail, and the first time, it turns out, it was a major blunder. So there you go. I think that's, it's important to note that he's full of it on that level. Of course, gives us an opportunity to remind people that child care is a parental issue, and very often something nearing the 50% mark of parents are in fact fathers. And sometimes they could use some child care, too. And as Libby Nelson explained, we might as well dive into that one, too, because the other day when, I guess the more recent mention of the child care issue, it drew this headline: Ivanka Trump's fingerprints are all over Donald Trump's new child care plan. But it was still a major blunder. If you paid any attention to it at all, it was Trump saying, well, we've got to help people with children and pay for their child care because Ivanka told me that child care is expensive. So here's what you do. When you got something that's expensive, you let people deduct it off their taxes, like I do, which is great. I know how to work the system. I want to open that up to you. So people should be able to deduct the cost of their child care from their taxes. That's basic. It's easy. We want to cut taxes anyway. It makes people more productive. So when you want something, you see something you want to encourage, like childcare, you just cut taxes for it so you can deduct. Of course, the problem with all of that is once you get down to the brass tacks of policy, which Donald Trump would never touch with a 10-foot pole in a million years, to mix a couple more metaphors in there, he doesn't understand. Just like he doesn't understand. What do you need for childcare? Some blocks, 2 people, some blocks, maybe a swing and some toys or something. And boom, childcare. It's called management. Boom, I just did it. Right? Of course, how long should it be open? Is 2 staffers enough? Do you get accredited by the state or not? And what about safety issues and OSHA things and this and that and health and allergies? And you got to be careful about all these things. But who cares? That's for the women. We get chicks for that crap. Come on, don't bother me. It's called management. Similarly, he knows nothing about how to pay for anything through the tax system. Why not? What's wrong with tax deductions for child care? Nothing, except it doesn't reach the people who really need help. Why not? Because tax deductions are things that only matter to people who, 1, itemize their taxes, and the only people who itemize their taxes are the well-off. Why? Because people who are actually poor, living in poverty or near poverty, one, they don't have the time or inclination or resources to itemize their taxes. That's something that people with accountants or extra time on their hands can do. And two, because the lowest income Americans are in fact mostly exempt from federal income taxation altogether because they simply don't earn enough money to have to pay any tax liability. They don't have any income tax liability. If you don't have any income tax liability, you still have to file returns and, say that you don't have that liability, but that's a relatively easy thing to do. But what happens to your child care deductions if you have zero tax liability? Deductions are subtracted from your total gross income to lower your tax liability. But if your tax liability is already zero, that is to lower the amount of your income subject to taxation. But if none of your income is subject to taxation because you don't make enough of it to have to file or to have tax liability, then a deduction nets you nothing. Nothing. How much money is there in a tax deduction for child care costs for a family either living in poverty or in the lower tax brackets? Zero. There's no help. The only people who can possibly get any kind of help out of a tax deduction for child care costs are people who are already doing far better than the lowest income earners in the country. And it's not that they couldn't use a break in many cases. They can. It's just that, again, it skews upscale, the help. Now, is there a way you could use taxation and a tax system to help lower income people with child care costs? Yes. But again, this is wonky stuff. It's for the bean counters. I don't know this crap. I thought that's what we were doing, offering a tax deduction, because when I think of taxes and how can I save money, I think tax deduction, because I live in a different world from 40% of the country who doesn't have income tax liability in this way, and I don't want to know anything about them because they're disgusting poors. I don't like that. I don't want to hear about that crap. What would help them? Tax credits. Specifically, refundable tax credits. There are two kinds, non-refundable and refundable. We like the refundable kind. Why? Because it helps people who don't have income tax liability. That's different. That says that even if you have no income tax liability, you can still get a rebate of the money you did have to pay in taxes of any kind, whether payroll taxes, Social Security taxes, etc. In other words, you positively get money back. You get additional dollars sent to you from the U.S. Treasury, even though you didn't have any federal income tax liability, money that can help you pay for child care. Instead of getting zero, you get something. But they don't like that because those people don't contribute. Why should we be sending them any money? Blah, blah, blah. Right? So he's just in the wrong ballpark entirely. He thinks he's doing a great thing. Tax deductions. Tax deductions aren't a part of the world that some 40% of earners live in. That's just not going to enter into their vocabulary. He doesn't understand that. And if you know what, you should all why don't you take my courses at Trump University and then you would have tax liability. See? There. Boom. I just helped you. But he's got no understanding of it. Imagine that. Swings, blocks, and I don't know, 2 chicks. Boom. Child care. Boom. Taxes. I understand it. I don't think so. Anyway, I just thought that was a pretty interesting development and well worth discussing. I guess here's another quick hit. We'll try and stuff in there, too. From the Huffington Post, Ariana Huffington leaving the Huffington Post, by the way. Big news in the Huffington Post, I guess. As for the rest of us, okay. Well, don't worry about it because it won't affect Sam Stein's political coverage. I don't think. I hope not. Because we got this from him. Trump tried to get Bush's labor secretary to attend his Get Rich Quick seminar. Yeah, he really did. Who is that? You'll remember Elaine Chao. Elaine Chao has had a career arc unmatched by many other people. She's been the chair of the Federal Maritime Commission. And right there, honestly, who's going to match that? How many chairs of the Federal Maritime Commission have there really been? How many people have ever heard of the Federal Maritime Commission? I don't know. But okay, this indicates this is an insider person. But you know Elaine Chao. She's done better than Federal Maritime Commission chair. She was the director of the Peace Corps. You probably heard of that. President and CEO of the United Way of America. Definitely heard of that one, even though that's not a federal job. And a distinguished fellow with the Heritage Foundation, which admittedly sucks. Then, in 2001, she was appointed as President George W. Bush's Secretary of Labor. You almost certainly heard of that job. The first Asian American woman in U.S. history to be granted a cabinet position. P.S. She's married to Mitch McConnell, who is now Majority Leader of the United States Senate. You've probably heard of him. But okay, she was successful on her own, and that ought to be noted. But then, of course, it couldn't have hurt that she's married to Mitch McConnell. Anyway, more to the point, that's not a person that ordinarily, if you were thinking at all about who you were mailing BS solicitations for get-rich-quick seminars to, you would say, ooh, you know what, let's take Elaine Chao off of that, because I recognize who she is, and that she doesn't really need that, and she's not going to really, probably, maybe she'll be amused by this, but certainly not likely to be enlightened by a Donald Trump get-rich-quick seminar. But no matter, because it's all taken care of. It's called management, people. It's all taken care of by underlings who are disgusting and mostly more poor than me. Anyway, sometime during the second half of that administration, someone came knocking on Chao's door, promising even more success, more power, more wealth and glitz. And that someone, metaphorically speaking, even though he's also the founder of ISIS, was Donald J. Trump. I kid. It's sarcastic. He didn't found ISIS. No, Trump didn't literally walk up to Chao's home in Washington, D.C. and ring the doorbell. Can't you tell when Sam is being sarcastic, people? But his seminar business, the Trump Institute, did send a package to Chao promising that she, too, could get rich quickly with the tutelage of its chairman, Trump. What you have in your hands right now is my personal invitation for you and your guest, like maybe your husband, Majority Leader, oh, he wasn't Majority Leader then, Minority Leader of the United States Senate, to attend a special event featuring a hand-picked, my tiny, tiny hands, picked, these members of my organization who will teach you many of the strategies and techniques that are the reasons for my success, read the letter, which was signed by Trump. At this special event, you will discover many of my unique wealth-creating secrets and strategies that I use to buy and sell real estate and that I also use in many of my highly profitable businesses. I wouldn't mind taking a course, by the way, in how to call people who have sold you things and tell them I'm not paying and get away with that. I mean, I would feel bad about doing it, but I do think every once in a while, why do I bother? I don't know why I bother getting up in the morning when I see what people are being paid. I don't know why I bother paying people for things that I purchase for myself when I see that he doesn't do it. I would like to know how to get away with it. Although I'd like to think that I wouldn't try it very often. But very often there are people who I feel like they really screwed me, but I end up paying them anyway because that's the way the world works. And I'd like to know, I need a script. Do you have something that works that makes me, I won't feel so bad and I can get off the phone relatively quickly after telling them I'm not going to pay? And maybe I need to live a rich lifestyle and live in a bubble where other people are answering your phone calls because then you won't know you have creditors calling you all the time. Anyway, was this a Trump University thing? It doesn't say it. So, it's Trump Institute. Okay, interesting. Same difference, but the letter, which was obtained by the Democratic opposition research group American Bridge, illustrates just how widely the Trump Institute cast its net in search of people willing to turn over their cash. They just buy lists like anyone else. But you would think that a quality list would not have Elaine Chao on it like that. Chao, by any stretch of the imagination, was not your typical target for the get-rich-quick schemers. As the New York Times reported in June, the Institute was predatory in nature, operated by a couple who had run afoul of regulators in dozens of states. Trump merely lent his name to the operation. People who signed up tended to be economically distressed and looking for shortcuts to wealth, and Trump promised them that. In an advertisement unearthed by BuzzFeed, he said attendees would make piles of cash and obtain the keys to unlock the secrets that I know can make you rich. Not that they've made me rich. but they can make you rich. Chow's letter appears to be nothing more than run-of-the-mill variety, absent the name and the address listed on the envelope, which we won't disclose, but which matched the address listed for her husband, Mitch McConnell. There is no indication that the Trump Institute actually knew that it was blitzing the Secretary of Labor. Enclosed were 2 complimentary VIP tickets, but they were 2 seemingly non-exclusive events in the Virginia and Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C. Of course, the letter made it appear that this was an exclusive opportunity that Chow would be a fool to pass up. And, of course, there's a picture of the Donald on the tickets. This invitation and the enclosed tickets have been sent only to those that have demonstrated a desire and willingness to be successful, it read. I promise that it will be well worth your time, and to prove it, I'm giving everyone who attends one of my best-selling books, Think Like a Billionaire, as a bonus. By the way, co-written by Meredith McIver, yes. Seating is definitely limited, and I expect to have a full house filled with people like you who want a piece of the good life, it read. The envelope appears to be dated August 2005, though it is possible that this was 2008, because the font is too blurry to tell. Either way, Chow was serving in the administration at the time. She only left the Department of Labor when Bush left the White House in January 2009. The Trump Institute's licensing agreement expired in 2009. Carolyn Stewart, the press secretary at the Hudson Institute, where Chow now works, did not confirm whether or not Chow attended. My guess is probably not. I don't think it was really up her alley. Very interesting, though, just how broadly he cast his net. But it's, again, somebody else was doing it. But it's called management, and he should only hire the best people. That's the lesson we come away with in that one. All right. Well, anyway, that wraps it up for the week. We will be off the air with new shows next week. I still hold out some hope about perhaps reading through a few of the stories, recording them, and patching together at least maybe one new show to keep you sustained during the week in which I'm gone. But I'm sure there'll be plenty of news, and we'll chat on Twitter. We've got our club. We can keep in touch, and we'll entertain one another that way. And then we'll be back on the air right after that, gearing up for the return of the kids to school the week following, and back to our regular schedule. And hopefully that will mean, then it's only a couple short weeks, I guess, until weather begins delaying the start of our show, and we need to go to our crazy snow emergency drills and see if we can't get Greg and or Armando to start filling in for our mornings, right? Okay. Closer to home, though, what's coming up today after we leave the air, and the after show picks up the slack. It's Angle of Repose Friday, and here's what they've got in store. A top-ranking Palo Alto, California housing official resigns because she can't afford to live in Palo Alto, California anymore. Wow. A New York life insurance company fired one of its top officials for wishing death on a Black Lives Matter activist. That's terrible. Not only is that racist, but life insurance people should not be wishing death on anybody. It's just bad for business, I think. And U.S. intelligence officials briefed the Republican congressional leadership a year ago on that hacking of the Democrats. Wow, how about that? And for the last half, the Friday News Dump and Recycling Center, news that's been repurposed with a purpose. And we'll tell you what news it is that they've got coming up right after this.
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Here we go. What's up for the last half? The Independent Science Advisory Board demands the Environmental Protection Agency explain why it thinks fracking does not contaminate drinking water. I'd like to know about that one. Global demand for avocados is fueling deforestation in central Mexico, and scientists warn that anthrax is one more threat of Russian permafrost melts.